All right, for the next video here, we're going to actually look at the 1065 itself and the financial statements and see how the fact pattern and the financials make their way onto the 1065 return. And this is important because we need to get a baseline and a sense of understanding as to how these numbers initially flow to the 1065 and then further break out into the relevant sections where they need to be reported on the K-2 and K-3. So I think the first thing that we'll start with here are the financial statements themselves. So let's start with and again, what we have here is I've got three sets of financials. This is a consolidated one. We've got the Florida one, and then the one for the German entity. Now remember, it's important for each entity to keep its own books and records, and so when we have the books created for each of the two subs, then those numbers can be consolidated onto the consolidated group of financial statements that's ultimately being used to complete the 1065. So we start with the Florida entity here. What we can see here on the left is the profit and loss, and on the right-hand side is the balance sheet. So what happened here during the year? The company had product sales, some returns, cost of goods sold, right, from the sale of its inventory, and then a variety of expenses, right? So for the sake of simplicity, we're not using overly complex financials here because I'm trying to make this easier to see how the numbers are flowing through to the K2s. Right, so we've got the ordinary trade or business income and expense up here, right? Revenues, cost of goods sold, and expenses. And then we have some interest incomes or portfolio interest earned on the U.S. bank accounts, okay? And so remember, from a partnership perspective, there are certain things that have to be separately stated on the K1s. Interest income is one of those, right? So when we look at the K1s, your allocation of interest, dividends, rents, royalties, a lot of other types of items cannot be included with the ordinary trade or business income. And on the right-hand side here, the balance sheet, we've got one operating bank account in the name of this LLC, got some prepaid expenses. There is that refund from the IRS for the withholding tax, right? When we look at the 8804 and 5s, that number will make a little bit more sense as to how we got that, but that's what that is, the refund from the IRS for the over withholding tax payment made with the 8804 estimates. We got our rental deposit here. We don't own the building that we're using for our convenience store, right? We are renting it. Our inventory balance at the end of the year, $208,000. And then we've got the liabilities down here, some AP, credit card payables, salaries and wages, and then the capital rec. So capital contributions, this is the amount of cash capital contribution made by the owners to this specific entity, right? So the funds, if we think about this conceptually, what happened is these two partners put in a little over $400,000 into this entity, and then they pushed the capital down to each one of them in $200,000 apiece. So that's what we're seeing here on the capital contributions is the owners put in a little over $400,000, and then they allocated $200K to each the fake store LLC, the Florida entity, and then we'll see when we look at the Swiss entity, we also have the $200,000 in share capital. Okay, now the other thing to highlight here is the distribution. So remember, on the fact pattern, what we looked at was this is the entity that's generating the ECI, and so we had the tax payment, the withholding on the ECI allocated to Jane is being applied as part of her distributions at this level. Okay, so that's only being applied to Jane's capital account. It's not going to John's capital account. And then the net income number, right? So that number just simply flows from there. All right, so if we look at the Swiss entities books, run through this, very similar to the last one, and then we'll look at the consolidated. So same thing, right? We've got product sales, expenses, interest income earned on the Swiss bank account. All right, so we've got a Swiss bank account obviously everything's done is in CHF, so Swiss francs, but we're translating all this into US dollars because we have to report in US dollars on the tax returns, right? So you have to translate using the appropriate exchange rates. And then there's the income taxes paid. So we did pay income taxes in Switzerland, and so our net income or loss per books after accounting for the income taxes is $106,711 US dollars. On the right-hand side here, we can see that we've got a bank account in Switzerland, similar stuff to the other financials, prepaid expenses, a rental deposit, our inventory balance at the end of the year. And then in the capital section here, again, the capital contributions, no distributions, right? So there were no dividends distributed from the Swiss entity up to the parent company, okay? So no capital has been distributed, and then we've got our net income number there, okay? Now, that we've looked at those two, let's look at the consolidated. So this is the consolidated balance sheet and profit and loss, which effectively represents the financial statements for this entity here in the middle. So Fake Holdco LLC, the Delaware LLC, is consolidating its activities from its two disregarded entities. And that's what's being illustrated here. Now, the reason why we've done that is because we have to report all of this activity on a consolidated basis on the 1065. So when we add up the numbers from each set of financial statements, these are the gross totals, right? So product sales across both the entities, cost of goods sold, salaries, wages, totals amounts of interest income, net income or loss per books. Now, the only thing that's different on this balance sheet side, you might have already spotted it, is the bank account. So this entity, the Fake Holdco up here, the only asset that this has, apart from its ownership and equity ownership in these two companies, is this entity has its own bank account. And that's not uncommon, right? Most holding companies will have a bank account. They might have some other assets and some nominal expenses. The real purpose is just to hold the stock and the subsidiaries. But it's often common to have at least a bank account, because when dividends are distributed up, right, they have to be transferred from here to the holdco and then up to the owners of the holdco, right? So you can't just skip through here, without doing some tricky accounting. So that's why the holdco bank account, this has been added. So the holding company had a bank account balance of $5,000 at the end of the year. We can see here all the balances from the other, underlying subsidiary entities. And then the total capital contributions there, that's where we come up with the other $5K. So effectively what happened is Jane and John put in $405,000 collectively between the two of them. And $400K was sent to the Florida LLC. Sorry, $200K was sent to the Florida LLC. $200K went to the German entity. And then $5,000 was retained in this bank account up here. Okay, so that's how all the numbers and the math is working here. And then we've got our consolidated capital distributions. Again, remember, the only amount of cash distributed was to make a withholding tax payment for the ECI allocation to Jane. None of the owners have taken any kind of dividends or draws during the year, right? Everything's being retained by the company right now. Okay, so now that we've covered this, let's start looking at how these numbers make their way onto the tax return. So the 1065 here, page 1 is where we report the ordinary trader business income. So if we look here on page 1, these are the numbers pulling from the consolidated set of financial statements, right? So we have our gross receipts or sales there, 1.83 million, right? We can see that coming from the consolidated statement here, 12,606 in returns, right? Our gross profit is 660,994, right? So we can see that there, 660,994, and so on and down the list, right? So we've reported our consolidated figures here as the ordinary trader business income. Now, what is not reported here on page 1? If you look closely here at the consolidated statement, remember, interest income is not reported on page 1. It's separately stated, so that's not on there. And then the income taxes paid in Switzerland, that is also not on line 1, right? Because we're going to treat that as a foreign tax credit, and so that has to be separately stated on the K-1. So just so, again, quickly show you where that lives. If we look at the Schedule K for the partnership's share of items, there's the $86 in interest income. Note here that we're just reporting the total amount of interest. There's no indication as to whether this is U.S. or foreign. That's where the K-2 and K-3s come in. Okay, now towards the bottom here, we can see total foreign taxes paid in the other information section. There's the $11,600. So that's where those numbers live, and that's why you don't see them on page 1 of the 1065, because those are not included in the ordinary business income or loss computation. Okay, so page 2, Schedule B, other information. So we have a domestic LLC. 2B, we do have individuals that own 50% or more of the LLC, so we're attaching a Schedule B1, so that's why we've indicated yes there. In question 8, it asks us if the partnership had an interest in or signature authority over any foreign bank accounts. In our case, yes, right? We have to indicate yes because we have an interest and or signature authority over a Swiss account. So we've indicated Switzerland there. We will file an FBAR. On page 3, Schedule B continued here. Questions 13 and 14 are important to highlight. So question 13, if the partnership needs to file an 8858 because it owns either a foreign disregarded entity or foreign branch, enter the number of forms filed. Yes, we do need to file, right? We have an interest in a Swiss company that is a foreign disregarded entity, and it's also a foreign branch, right? So we are checking off 1 as the number of 8858s filed with this. Question 14, also important, right? Does the question have any foreign partners? If so, how many 8805s are we filing? So yes, we definitely have foreign partners, right? Jane is a Bermuda citizen, Bermuda tax resident, so we have a foreign partner, and we are including 1 because we only have 1 foreign partner, so we'll file 1 8805. Question 19, also important. Did we need to file any 1042s? So 1042s, 1042Ss, these are filed when there is U.S. source FDAP income being paid to a non-resident. Now, in our case, what we'll see is that we have U.S. source income allocated to Jane, but it's not subject to withholding tax. Still need to file a 1042. Okay, so the withholding tax doesn't apply to the interest because it's going to be portfolio interest. So there is that exemption there, but we still need to file. Now, if we scroll on down to the balance sheet, this is, again, pretty straightforward. We're just pulling the numbers from the consolidated balance sheet in our Excel workbook, right? So if we look here, we'll total up the cash, report that on the cash line, all these other items, the total aggregate inventory, 403,649, and we'll get our total assets of $604,109. So we can see that's all being reported here, right? Total assets, $604,109. There's our total inventory at year end. The total cash balances, again, it's all reflected in US dollars, but this is an aggregate of all those accounts, right? Both from the Florida LLC, the Holdco, and the Swiss entity. Then we've got our AP down there, all the other liabilities, right? Salaries and wages payable, credit card balances, and then our total ending capital for the partnership, $583,035. Now our net income or loss per books there, you'll see it's $194,210. If we go look at the consolidated financial statements here, we can see $194,210 is our net income or loss per books, right? So okay, those numbers all match. It looks good. M2 is the reconciliation of capital, right? So we put in $405,000 of cash. $194,210 in profits, and in book profits rather. Cash distributions, again, remember, there's that $16,175. We'll look at that closer later in the video, but that's the amount of cash distributed or deemed distributed to Jane, but it really went to the IRS, right? So it is a reduction to her capital account. Cost of goods sold recs, right? So beginning inventory was 0, purchases. When we back out the ending inventory, we get our cost of goods sold shared across both companies, right? So that's the cost of goods sold figure for the Florida LLC and the Swiss entity. There's our Schedule B1 for information on partners owning 50% or more of the company. So we've got John and Jane there. Jane is a non-resident, right? So she doesn't have a tax ID number. So we use Foreign U.S. as a placeholder. Country of citizenship is Bermuda. 50% of the company is owned by her. There's our FBAR. All right, so we filed our FBAR to report our interest in the foreign bank account, so nothing too strange there. And here is our withholding tax Form 8804. So we'll look at the allocations more closely when we actually look at the K-2 and K-3. But 8804, this is filed whenever you have effectively connected taxable income allocated to non-residents. So we'll look at this computation a little more closely later, but $43,716 is the amount of U.S. source effectively connected income allocated to Jane. So that's the piece that's subject to the withholding taxes. So when we calculate the amount of withholding tax at 37%, that's the number. And then when we file this, we'll let the IRS know that, hey, look, we already made a $20,000 payment because we were trying to be a little cautious with making sure we didn't underpay. So the amount that's actually owed is $16,175. We paid $20K, so we're going to get a refund back from the service for $3,825. All right. There's a capital reconciliation just to see how the money is flowing through here. So you notice each of them put in the same amount of capital. Each of them is being allocated the same amount of net income or loss, right? But on the withdrawal section, notice the slight difference here, right? Jane has a deemed distribution because she had withholding taxes applied to her share of the effectively connected income. Not the same case for John, right? John didn't have to deal with that, so we're not applying any of that of this withholding to him. So his capital account is a little higher than Jane's just for that purpose. Okay, so and then the next video is going to be the K-2. So I'm going to pause here. We'll jump into the next video and start going through the K-2 and then ultimately get back to the K-3.